Yeah.
The White House has said there were false statements in this book. The president's lawyer has said there were libelous statements. Could you just give a few examples of things that have been said in this book that are false, that you would like to set the record straight on?
I'm not going to go through every single page of the book, but there are numerous examples of falsehoods that take place in the book. I'll give you one just because it's really easy. The fact that there was a claim that the president didn't know who John Boehner was is pretty ridiculous, considering the majority of you have seen photos, and frankly several of you have even tweeted out that the president not only knows him but has played golf with him, tweeted about him. I mean, that's pretty simple and pretty basic. Ages of employees, which would be super easy to fact check, are wrong. Again, there are numerous mistakes, but I'm not going to waste my time or the country's time going page by page talking about a book that's complete fantasy and just full of tabloid gossip, because it's sad, pathetic, and our administration and our focus is going to be on moving the country forward. John?
What's the president's reaction to the growing number of suggestions, both in this book and in the media, that he's mentally unfit to serve as president?
The same way we have when it's been asked before, that it's disgraceful and laughable. If he was unfit, he probably wouldn't be sitting there and wouldn't have defeated the most qualified group of candidates the Republican Party has ever seen. This is an incredibly strong and good leader. That's why we've had such a successful 2017 and why we're going to continue to do great things as we move forward in this administration. John?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Two questions. First, the book repeatedly says that candidate Trump, his family, and the top officials of the campaign did not believe he would be elected. It was the farthest from their mind. You said yesterday you believed in this candidate and felt he would win. Can you name anyone else who said at the time, on the eve of the election, that they felt he would win, and did the president himself believe he would not win?
Look, as we've stated many times before, go back and look at some of the interviews, specifically Kellyanne Conway. I know she did several leading up to the days just before the election, saying directly that the president can win and would win. I know there were a number of other campaign officials that echoed those same sentiments. The president, the first lady, his family, they wouldn't have put themselves through that process if, one, they didn't believe they could win, and two, they didn't want to win. This was something they were very committed to and have been committed to since taking office, and will continue to do so over the next 7 years. Again, it is absolutely laughable to think that somebody like this president would run for office with the purpose of losing. If you guys know anything, you know that Donald Trump is a winner, and he's not going to do something for the purpose of not coming out on top and not coming out as a winner. It's just, I mean, that's one of the most ridiculous things, I think, the claims in the book. Francesca.
Thank you, Sarah. I wanted to follow up on something you said yesterday. The last time that the president spoke to Steve Bannon was early December, at least to your knowledge, you said. So that's one thing. But secondly, the president said today, I don't talk to Steve Bannon. I don't talk to him. So how much were they in contact from the time that he left the White House to that early December call that you mentioned? And also, how close were they when they were in the White House? One of the claims that was made in the book was that he frequently dined with Mr. Bannon unless he was already in bed.
The book also says that he had been sidelined by April, which I think goes further to indicate that he had very little credibility to give much information, particularly after that point, which most of the book is based after that time frame. So again, this book is mistake after mistake after mistake.
By April, Sarah, were they not close by the time that he left?
I'm not aware that they were ever particularly close. I would certainly say that they've spoken a few times since he left the White House, but it's not like there were regularly scheduled calls or and certainly no meetings between the two of them. Kevin.
Sarah, thanks. Just a couple. I just want to ask you, broadly speaking, what's your level of exhaustion when you have to have this issue out there when there are other policy issues you're trying to get to and trying to communicate to the American people? How do you balance that? And I guess the obvious would be, did you speak to the president specifically about what has been said, or at least has been released about this book?
I have spoken to the president about some of the specifics that have come up. In terms of the level of exhaustion, I'm less concerned with my exhaustion as I am with the people of this country who frankly probably could care less about a book full of lies and would really like to hear more about the booming economy, the crushing of ISIS, all of the great things that are happening in this country, or all of the big problems that we're focused on tackling. I don't think they really care about some trash that an author that no one had ever heard of until today or a fired employee wants to peddle. This is the focus of this administration, is moving our country forward, and hopefully everybody in this room will join us in that effort and focus on some of the policy components instead of some of the ridiculous lies that we have to spend all of our time in here focused on. Christopher.
Sarah, thank you. As a candidate, President Trump threatened some 20 lawsuits and followed through with 2 of them. So why should Steve Bannon and Michael Wolff be concerned?
I think that regardless of whether or not there's a lawsuit, they should be concerned about peddling fake stories. They should be concerned about putting out information that's not true. They should be concerned about the fact that we're spending all of our time here focused on talking about this instead of things that people in this country care about. I think that's a really sad process, and I think that that should be everyone's concern.
Is the president committed to following through with these lawsuits?
I think that's a question you'd have to talk to his attorneys about, and whether or not that moves forward and what that looks like.
Don't you just run the risk of increasing book sales, though, Sarah, drawing more attention to this?
I think you guys are the ones that are drawing the attention. Every question basically that I've been asked has to do with that. It's not like I came out here and read excerpts from the book, so I don't think that I can be responsible for the questions that you asked. In fact, if I tried to do that, I'm sure I would certainly be attacked for trying to, because I did that once and it didn't go over very well. Mike, go ahead.
Is the cell phone ban a response to the revelations in this book?
Absolutely not. That's a ridiculous characterization. This is about the security and the integrity of the technology systems here at the White House. This is something that has been in process and in the works for over 6 months, and we were making sure that all of the information and the ability for the government phones to increase their ability for other application so that we can comply with Presidential Records Act. That was a big piece of making sure that this was done. Now that that process is completed, we can move forward, and that'll start next week. Brian?
Thanks. I'd like to drill down on something that Peter asked yesterday, and I profess my ignorance in this, but next week when he goes for his dumb smile,
yeah.
So
I mean, if you want to call yourself ignorant,
I am.
I'm
but
not going to argue.
When he goes for so enlighten me, make me smart. So next week when he goes to his physical, are there mental acuity tests that go along with that, or is it purely physical in nature?
We'll discuss, as I said, when I announced that he was going to be doing the physical. We'll have a readout of that after that is completed, and we'll let you know at that time.
The second question I have for you is, yesterday you said Steve Bannon was entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts. This administration has said on many occasions that they are entitled to alternative facts. So how is that different with Steve Bannon?
This administration has not said on numerous occasions that there are alternative facts. I know that there was one reference in which they were saying there's basically 2 sides to the story. I think that's very different than completely false information and an opinion. Ashley?
Sarah, it's an incredibly high bar for a public figure to win a libel case, a public figure, especially like the president. So I was hoping you could explain why the president thinks it's an appropriate use of attention and resources to marshal both his West Wing and his legal team against the book's author, the book's publisher, and a former staffer.
In terms of a legal argument, I would refer you to the president's attorneys, but in terms of the merits, I think it's pretty clear. I don't think we have been tiptoeing around our feelings on this. It's completely tabloid gossip full of false and fraudulent claims, and I would refer you to the president's attorneys on what that looks like in the court of law. I'll take one last question. Jim?
Sarah, you were calling the Michael Wolff book a book full of lies. Didn't this White House give Michael Wolff all the access that he wanted?
Absolutely not. In fact, there are probably more than 30 requests for access to information from Michael Wolff that were repeatedly denied, including within that at least 24 requests of him asking to have an interview with the president, which he never did. He never discussed this book with the president. And to me, that would be the most important voice that you could have if you were looking to write a book about an individual, would be to have some time with him. He never did. He was repeatedly denied that, I think because we saw him for what he was, and there was no reason for us to waste the President of the United States time. And frankly, since we were unable, I'll let you have one follow-up.
Okay, I appreciate that. Should the letter from the president's lawyers aimed at Steve Bannon and aimed at the publisher be interpreted as a threat from the United States government, from this administration, to not publish this book?
It's not from the United States government. It's from the president's personal attorney, and I think it is very clear what its purpose is. And there's nothing to add beyond that. If you have specifics on that, I would refer you to the president's attorneys. Thanks so much, guys.